the husband who tricked everyone, including the FBI. Like many young girls, Caroline Crouch dreamed of epic romances and whirlwind marriages. Her story began as a teenage fantasy when, at just 15, she caught the eye of a 27-year-old commercial helicopter pilot. This pilot, not just content with sweeping her off her feet, literally flew over her school, captivating young Caroline. The two soon eloped, with their vows exchanged quietly away from the eyes of the world. However, this storybook beginning spiraled into a grim tale of deceit and death. On the early morning of May 11th, 2021, at precisely 4:30 a.m., the tranquility of a suburban home in Glika on the outskirts of Athens was shattered. Haralambos Anopoulos, known affectionately as Babis, was jolted awake not by an alarm, but by the chilling presence of three hooded men in his bedroom. These intruders, speaking with a mix of Greek and Albanian accents, were not mere burglars. They came with a sinister agenda. Armed and ruthless, they quickly overpowered Babis, binding and blindfolding him with the efficiency of practiced criminals. His wife Caroline, only 19, and the mother of their 11-month-old daughter who lay nearby, was their next target. The supposed robbery swiftly escalated into a horrifying act of violence that would claim Caroline's life. Born on July 12, 2001, to David Crouch, a retired engineer, and Susan Della Costa, Caroline's life was one of coastal beauty and adventure. Her family had moved to the picturesque island of Alanissos when she was 8. Drawn by its serene beaches and vibrant community, Caroline thrived here, diving into activities like scuba diving and swimming with the passion typical of someone in love with their surroundings. Her life took a romantic turn during a Good Friday parade in 2017, where she first met Babis, then a charismatic pilot. Their connection was undeniable, and they married in Portugal on July 15, 2019. Just days before her tragic death, the couple had invested in their future together by purchasing a plot of land, unaware of the cruel twist fate had in store. Babis and Caroline envisioned a bright future on the plot of land they had recently acquired, planning to construct their ideal home there for themselves and their young daughter. To support this dream, Caroline had received a generous gift of 50,000 euros from her parents, while the couple had managed to save an additional 10,000 euros, which they kept hidden at home given the precarious banking environment in Greece at the time. With banks teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, many Greeks preferred the security of keeping their savings in physical cash at home, a decision Caroline also embraced, unaware of the tragedy that would unfold on May 11th. That fateful night turned into a nightmare when intruders broke into their home, demanding to know where the money was hidden. In a desperate bid to protect his family, Babis revealed the location of their savings, ingeniously concealed within a Monopoly board game box. The robbers quickly found the cash intended for the family's dream home. However, their greed was not satiated with just the cash. They ransacked the house, taking jewelry and other valuables, pushing Babis and Caroline to the brink as they pleaded for their lives and the safety of their daughter. Amidst the chaos, Babis, though blindfolded, struggled against his bindings, the rope around his neck tightening to the point where he repeatedly lost and regained consciousness. When he finally came to, the house was eerily quiet except for the heart-wrenching sobs of his daughter. It took about 30 minutes, but Babis managed to inch towards his mobile phone and dialed emergency services with his nose. As the call connected, he frantically requested an ambulance, his voice breaking as he relayed their location to the dispatcher. Despite the duct tape muzzling his mouth, Babis managed to place a distress call, his words emerging muffled and desperate. The operator struggled to understand him, asking him to describe the situation. Robbers came in, Babis could barely articulate, marking an hour and a half since the ordeal began. First responders arrived by 6 a.m., rushing up the steps into a scene of utter devastation. The interiors were a portrait of chaos, furniture overturned, drawers yanked open and emptied, and personal items strewn all around. Among the wreckage lay an open Monopoly box, the very place where Babis and Caroline had once secured their dreams in the form of cash. In a grim discovery on the living room couch, a security camera lay disconnected, its memory card conspicuously absent, suggesting a deliberate attempt to erase evidence. More heartbreakingly, the responders found the family's white and brown husky puppy lifeless, a leash tightened around its neck dangling from the staircase. In the main bedroom, Babis was discovered on the floor, his face obscured with duct tape that cruelly extended to his neck, his limbs bound tightly behind him. Nearby, on the bed, lay Caroline Crouch, Face down and motionless, their infant daughter beside her, innocently clapping and pushing at her mother in a futile attempt to rouse her. The scene confirmed the worst. Caroline was dead. Although her daughter appeared physically unscathed, the horror of the situation was evident in her distress. First responders noted Caroline's pallor and quickly deduced she had been murdered. Upon being freed, Babis was overwhelmed by the sight of his wife's body, the love of his life lost to such brutality. As the safety of the infant was secured, police began questioning Babis. From his account and the forensic analysis of the crime scene, they concluded that while 3 men had invaded the home, a 4th accomplice kept watch outside. The officers pieced together the sequence of events leading up to the murder and the culprit's escape. The sequence of the invasion was meticulously pieced together by the investigators. Firstly, the intruders accessed the property via a dirt road that led to a rear entrance. When they couldn't breach the rear door, they removed security pins from a basement window to make their way inside. Once inside the maisonette, their first act of violence was against Roxy, the family's 7-month-old husky, using her own leash as a makeshift murder weapon. Secondly, the trio proceeded to the main bedroom where Babis and Caroline were asleep, unaware of the horror unfolding. Thirdly, they ransacked the house, extracting the stashed money from the Monopoly box. Fourthly, before their departure, they smothered Caroline with a pillow, presuming Babis, who was drifting in and out of consciousness, to be dead as well, leaving what they thought were no witnesses. The attack on Caroline was particularly brutal and prolonged, lasting approximately 6 minutes. The evidence of her struggle was marked by bruises across her body, with additional injuries on her lips and tongue suggesting the use of sharp objects. Fortunately, there were no signs of sexual assault. As far as the investigation went, the damage to the property was extensive, yet the intruders left behind scant evidence. A crucial piece of evidence found was the hood from one of the intruders, which presumably fell off during Babis's desperate struggle for survival. This minor, yet significant find allowed Babis to catch a brief glimpse of one of the attackers, leading to the creation of a sketch. The depicted individual was described as an overweight, dark-skinned, tall man. Despite his disoriented state, Babis also noted 2 firearms used by the intruders, a black pistol and a silver Colt. From what was gathered, the intruders managed to escape with not only the 10,000 euros in cash, but also jewelry valued at approximately 20,000 euros. The precision and timing of the crime led police to conclude that this was the work of professional criminals who had been monitoring the family, waiting for an opportune moment to execute their plan. The brutality and violence of the crime were underscored by a police spokesperson who described the attack as the work of someone with a profound lack of emotions and a strong antisocial personality. As the investigation unfolded, various theories emerged, deepening the mystery of the murder. A predominant question loomed: if robbery was the sole motive, why was murder necessary? Several theories were proposed. Perhaps the intruders were under the influence of drugs, impairing their ability to control their actions, or maybe Caroline had recognized them, prompting them to silence her. Caroline's capabilities as a black belt kickboxer meant she did not go down without a fight, especially when the safety of her daughter, threatened with a gun to her temple, was at stake. Despite the rampant speculations, investigators were convinced the attack was meticulously planned. This belief stemmed from the fact that the intruders knew precisely where the money was hidden, suggesting inside information. Consequently, the police closely scrutinized Babis and Caroline's close acquaintances, suspecting a tip-off. As part of the investigation, security footage from nearby homes and businesses was scrutinized. A dark-colored car followed by a motorcycle was spotted circling the vicinity of their house on the day of the murder, adding another layer to the complex investigation. Caroline Crouch was mourned and laid to rest 3 days following the tragic events on the serene Greek island of Alonissos, where she had spent her cherished childhood years. At her funeral, Babis paid a heartfelt tribute to his late wife, expressing his fortune in having known and loved her and the blessing of their daughter. He lamented that their daughter would grow up without memories of her mother, but assured that Caroline's spirit would live on through her, calling Caroline the joy of his life. Meanwhile, as the island bid farewell to Caroline, a seemingly unrelated incident occurred on the mainland. A routine police stop in northeast Greece led to the pulling over of a car, unknowingly weaving another thread into the ongoing investigation. Inside the pulled-over vehicle was Georgi Haradishvili, a 36-year-old Georgian national en route to the Bulgarian border. He handed over a passport that was quickly flagged as fraudulent. But who was this man, and what connection might he have to Caroline's tragic murder? Haradishvili was not just any traveler. He was a known violent criminal with a string of convictions under his belt. He was wanted for a dozen burglaries in Athens over the previous 6 months, including 3 in the vicinity of Babis and Caroline's home. One particularly chilling incident in December bore striking similarities to the break-in at Babis and Caroline's. Haradishvili and his accomplices had entered a house through a rear window. They brutally dragged the female homeowner by her hair and threatened her life. From this and another robbery in March, mere months before Caroline's murder, they amassed significant loot comprising cash and jewelry. The pattern of these crimes, coupled with Haradishvili's striking resemblance to the sketch based on Babis's description of one of the intruders, painted him as a prime suspect. The accumulation of evidence suggested a habitual violent offender trying to flee the country, closely matching the police sketch. Haradishvili was detained and subjected to a rigorous 4-day interrogation, which unfortunately involved physical coercion. Despite the harsh tactics, he maintained his innocence, claiming he had never heard of Caroline Crouch. Ultimately, the evidence against him did not hold up. Haradishvili was exonerated, leading to a significant reprimand within the police force. 3 officers from the Athens homicide squad were demoted for their handling of his case. As the investigation progressed, the focus shifted to a notorious Albanian organized crime group. Initially, the police had a long list of 100 suspects, which they eventually whittled down to just 10. These individuals were all prominent figures on a criminal registry known as the Red List. Mugshots from this list were shown to Babis, though no further information was disclosed to him by the police. The case was unusually complex and slow to unravel, leading to growing impatience among the public, especially as racially motivated crimes were on the rise. The scarcity of leads was so pronounced that a substantial monetary reward remained unclaimed. The pervasive fear among Athens residents was palpable, with many wondering who the next victim might be. Experts cited in media reports at the time commented on the exceptional nature of the case, suggesting that if it had been a typical investigation, it would have likely been resolved by then. Details that did emerge revealed the absence of DNA or fingerprints, leaving Caroline's family clinging to hope as the quest for justice stretched on. In the midst of this prolonged ordeal, Babis became a focal point for media attention. He openly supported the police efforts and remained active on social media, where he engaged with the public and expressed gratitude for the ongoing support. His visibility and interaction were vital in keeping Caroline's case in the public eye. A significant breakthrough came on June 17th, 37 days after Caroline's tragic death. A small memorial service on the island of Alanissos, where she was laid to rest, drew the attention of both mourners and detectives. After the service concluded, investigators discreetly approached Babis, requesting his presence back in Athens for a crucial identification related to new information they had uncovered. Unaware of what awaited him, Babis consented to accompany them. This new lead, along with several other key details from the night Caroline was murdered, brought fresh inconsistencies to light that needed urgent resolution. As the investigation deepened, inconsistencies began to surface, casting doubt on Babis's initial account. He had informed the police that the intruders entered through a basement window. However, this window was notably small, and given the described physique of the supposed killer, it seemed an improbable point of entry. Babis also reported that the house was extensively ransacked during the intrusion. Yet neighbors contradicted this claim, reporting only the sounds of the couple's puppy in distress, with no evidence of a commotion, cries for help, or the sound of an infant. Moreover, while Babis asserted that the intruders had removed the memory card from the living room security camera to eliminate evidence, data from the camera system indicated that the card was actually removed at 1:20 a.m., hours before the alleged time of entry by the criminals. Compelling evidence also came from Caroline's smartwatch, which showed her pulse was normal at 3:58 a.m., but spiked dramatically by 50% at 4:05 a.m., suggesting severe distress, and tragically, the readings at 4:11 a.m. confirmed her heart had stopped, again contradicting the timeline Babis had provided. Adding to the suspicions, data from Babis's own fitness app indicated activity at a time he claimed to be immobilized and tied up. The police also conducted tests to replicate Babis dialing emergency services with his nose, as he described, but these attempts were unsuccessful, casting further doubt on his version of events. Investigative leads revealed that on the night of her murder, Caroline had made attempts to book a hotel for herself and her daughter, hinting at plans to leave Babis. A text message sent to a friend confirmed her intentions to end the relationship. This personal backdrop added another layer to the case. Considering Babis's history, He had met Caroline while on vacation in Alanissus, where his mother worked as a teacher at Caroline's school. Known for his charisma and affluence, Babies had initially charmed Caroline, leading to their eventual relationship. Caroline's initial enchantment with Babies began when he made a grand gesture by flying a helicopter over her school, a fantasy that many teenage girls might dream of. Yet, Caroline was oblivious to the fact that this romantic overture would soon evolve into her worst nightmare. She believed they were a perfect match and confidently assured her family of her happiness. Babies proposed to Caroline a year and a half into their relationship, a moment that was both dreamy and complex, as she was still underage. She turned 18 just 3 days after his proposal, and soon after, the couple exchanged vows and settled in Glyca. While Caroline pursued her college education in Athens, Babis continued his career as a pilot. To the outside world, especially on social media, their life together appeared joyously filled with love and romance. However, the pages of Caroline's diary told a starkly different story, revealing the deep reservations she harbored about her relationship with Babis. In 2019, she confided in her diary about a significant fight they had, noting her contemplations about leaving him and seeking refuge with her sister. Over time, Babis's behavior became increasingly manipulative and controlling, traits that Caroline traced back to their decision to elope rather than having a traditional Greek wedding filled with family and festivities. This choice, initially romantic, later manifested as a deliberate act of isolation by Babis. Caroline's sense of isolation intensified upon their return from the elopement, with Babis being the sole breadwinner and Caroline dependent on him financially as a university student. Even the financial support her mother, Susan, provided was controlled by Babis. Her diary entries painted a picture of a woman torn between love and pain, stating, "I love Baby so much that I can't leave him, even though this relationship hurts me." Her diary also detailed a tearful confrontation with Babis, where she expressed a desire to leave. Yet, her pregnancy compelled her to stay, hoping to provide a stable family environment for her daughter. In a poignant entry dated July 2020, Caroline wrote about her newborn, "Today, my little one is a month old," capturing the bittersweet reality of her life. On the same day Caroline noted in her diary her wish to leave Babis, she expressed profound sadness, marking the depth of her despair. Her entries also referenced a house in Athens, located in Helandry, symbolizing the stark contrast between her once fairy tale aspirations and the grim reality she endured. What began as a dream had spiraled into an abyss of pain, horror, despair, and isolation, an abyss from which she saw no escape. Hours before her tragic murder, phone records revealed a series of argumentative and combative texts exchanged with Babis, highlighting the deteriorating state of their relationship. The evidence against Babis accumulated, leading investigators to confront him with their findings and officially name him as the prime suspect in the case. Presented with overwhelming evidence that contradicted his earlier statements, Babis was subjected to an 8-hour interrogation. During the interrogation, Babis initially fabricated parts of his confession. He claimed that an argument began on the evening of May 10th, centering around Caroline's determination to take their daughter and leave, a prospect that he said made him lose control, considering the child his whole life. According to Babis, the argument escalated. Caroline became physically aggressive, leading to him reacting fatally in the heat of the moment. Babis confessed to strangling Caroline, smothering her with a pillow while using his entire body weight, all in the presence of their 11-month-old daughter. Overwhelmed by the situation, he contemplated disposing of Caroline's body, but realized it wasn't feasible. Instead, he devised a plan to stage a home invasion during which he also killed their puppy, Roxy, to lend credibility to his fabricated story. He placed his child next to Caroline's body, then bound himself with rope and duct tape to complete the staged scene. In his confession, Babis expressed remorse, acknowledging his actions were indefensible and stating he owed a significant apology to everyone affected. Despite his attempts to shift some blame onto Caroline by portraying himself as driven to instability and aggression, the truth of his sole responsibility emerged clearly. This case, which Babis believed he could manipulate to his advantage, became known as the murder that fooled the world. His overconfidence in evading justice led to crucial oversights in concealing evidence. In May 2022, Babis was convicted on multiple charges, including premeditated murder, obstructing justice, providing false information to authorities, and animal abuse, sealing his fate and bringing a tragic chapter to a close for all involved.